there everybody, this is Vicky from Eternal Athena Tarot and welcome to another episode of the 10-Minute Tarot Tutor. Today I want to talk about significator cards. Significator cards are cards that we pre-select ahead of time before we even begin shuffling our decks, and the intent is to choose a card that is going to represent the querent in a reading. Traditionally, significator cards are chosen from the court cards, and those are the quote-unquote people cards of the tarot, where you basically see like a single person sitting or standing or on a horse, and it's just like a person. They're usually titled in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and these cards represent people in our lives. Either they can represent the querent, or they can represent a lover or a friend or an acquaintance or a family member in the life of the person for whom you are reading. So traditionally we choose significator cards from the court cards, but I've also heard about readers who like to choose significator cards from the major arcana or the numbered cards of the minor arcana. It's totally fine which one you want to go with. Me personally, I like to choose from the court cards precisely because I found in my tarot reading practice that when I get a lot of court cards in a tarot reading, that it becomes really difficult to decipher who is who. And just to back up a little bit, I will say that the court cards in the tarot are among the hardest to interpret precisely for that reason, because they tend to represent, people or energies that people can bring to a situation, but when many appear in a tarot spread, it can become quite challenging to figure out who is this person in the querent's life and what is it they do. However, it becomes a lot easier from my perspective if we choose a significator card ahead of time. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take you over to my reading table, and I'm going to lay out some examples of how I use significator cards to help us figure out who is who, especially when multiple court cards appear in a tarot reading. So let's go over. All right, so I pre-selected the Queen of Wands to act as our quote-unquote constant in this example, and I chose her primarily because she's my court card and I identify with her very much. But let's go ahead and run through some examples of how we can discern who's involved in this person's life based on the other court cards that appear next to her or appear somewhere else in the spread. And I'm not going to draw an actual spread because I don't want to confuse people. Let's just stay focused on like having two cards in front of us, and trying to discern, what we can tell about another person who's being represented by a second court card that comes up in a reading. So let's start off with the Queen of Swords. So here's the Queen of Swords, and you'll notice straight off the bat that the rankings of these two ladies are the same. They're both queens, but the elements are a little bit different. One hails from the element of fire, the other hails from the element of air. So based on this situation, I would actually say that maybe these two ladies are good friends. And how do I get that? Well, they're both peers. They're both kind of equal to each other in rank. We know that from the queens. Queens also express the energy of their respective suits in a feminine way. So we know that they are both dealing with a very masculine energy. Fire is masculine, air is masculine, but they handle that energy in a way that's not traditional to how femininity is constructed. So that tells me that they probably have a basis for getting along with one another, or at least understanding each other's situation. And I also kind of get that from the fact that these two ladies hail from elements that are considered to be friendly with one another. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the rules of elemental dignities, you'll know that fire and air get along. Fire and air support one another, as do court cards or any kind of card that are both of the same element. But, what I get from this is that if I saw the Queen of Wands next to the Queen of Swords, I'd say these are two ladies who probably very good friends. They probably have lots to talk about. And, they both, she is probably more, there are some differences though. She's probably more impulsive. She's a thinker. She's a talker. She's in action. She's like a doer. But these two ladies, they're friendly. They get along with one another. Now, let's say I want to compare the Queen of Wands to the Queen of Cups. So we're keeping the rankings the same. Again, they're both queens. So that tells us that they both occupy the same ranking or status. But they hail from elements that are actually opposite to one another according to the rules of elemental dignities. And it's just occurring to me right now, I should probably make a video on elemental dignities and what that is and how we can use them in our readings. But fire and water are known to be elements that tend to cancel each other out. So I would suggest that if these two cards came up and I'm being asked to interpret who is the Queen of Cups with respect to the Queen of Wands, it's not that they don't get along, although that might be a possibility, but it also tells us that these are women who approach life in different ways. So the Queen of Cups is like someone who reflects on things, maybe is not so prone to taking action right away like the Queen of Wands is. She's action orientated. The Queen of Cups is very emotionally orientated. She's very much in her imagination, or she feels things versus feeling inspired to do things. She feels things very emotional level. And we also know that the Queen of Cups is someone, I interpret her to be someone who likes to keep secrets. And you'll notice if you take out all the court cards belonging to the suit of cups, that the Queen of Cups is the only person whose cup is closed. Her chalice is closed. Versus the King of Cups, the Knight of Cups, and the Page of Cups, they have open chalices. So I would say that maybe she's not as forthcoming in information, or she keeps things to herself, whereas the Queen of Wands, being from the fire element, is someone who very much likes to put it out there and just say it, and to be blunt, and to not hide anything. So, I won't go as far as say they don't get along, but that could certainly be a possibility. But they tend to approach life from different perspectives, and they tend to act in different ways. And quite often when you get that contrast in personalities, it does make for a situation where one person is very frustrated with the other. Let's take a look at the Queen of Wands and the King of Wands. So again, we have two different rankings, and they are both masters of their suits. Kings and queens in tarot tend to represent people who have arrived, people who are no longer needing to do anything to prove themselves. They can sit back and enjoy all the work that the fruits of their labors over a course of time. And the difference is, however, is that the king is going to express the energy of a suit in a masculine way, and she is going to express her energy in a feminine way. But they are both of the same element, meaning they both react to things the same way. They both handle life the same way. Wands is fire, and this is all about passion, motivation, what makes us happy, what gets us up and going. And so I would, if I saw these two core cards together, based on the fact that they are of the same element, and based on the fact that they are one's male, one's female, that they are probably a couple. Like whenever I see like kings and queens together, like to me, like, the king is the queen's consort. Her partner, her mate. And so I would suggest maybe this is a married couple. Like this King of Wands is someone who is maybe intimately attached to the Queen of Wands, or someone who's very close to her in some way. But of course, they're almost equal to one another. I think that in the Rider-Waite-Smith system, the Queen is considered to be slightly subordinate to the King, and that's based on these traditional gender roles that existed like back in 1909 when this deck was created, that the Queen is always there to be of support to the King, but the King is the leader who leads the way. So, but we live in more modern times now. So I would suggest that the Queen is supportive of him in some ways, but they both have achieved the highest rank that they can, or the highest status in life that they have potential to achieve. Let's run through one more example, and I'm going to go ahead and select let's go with the Knight of Swords. Or no, actually, let's do the Knight of Pentacles. Okay, so here's an example where when we're looking at the elements, these are two elements, according to the rules of elemental identities, are kind of neutral towards one another. So fire and earth are neutral towards one another, as are water and air, meaning that they don't hurt one another, they don't help one another in any way. And we also know, looking at the rankings of these two individuals, that one outranks the other. The Queen is a higher status than the Knight. The Knight's purpose in life is to be of service, to assist, to help, sometimes to be the chivalrous gentleman who's going to rescue the damsel in distress. Although it looks like in this situation here, he's looking away from her and she's kind of looking, towards him. So maybe he's not interested in doing any kind of rescue work per se. If we flip the situation and did this, maybe that'd be a different story. But based on the fact that one's the queen, one's the knight, so we know that this is a person who is of a lower stature in some way. Like if these two folks were coworkers, let's say, I would say that she's like the boss lady, and the Knight of Pentacles represents someone who is underneath her in rank. Knights tend to serve queens. And so I would say that this is a person who wants to be of service to you in some way, but the connection between these two people maybe is not very strong in either the good way or bad way. So, the Knight of Pentacles is pretty neutral towards fire. So this is it's a relationship where one is of service to the other, but it's not, how I would interpret this, not a deep and lasting bond. But this represents also two approaches to life. So where the querent is someone who is, again, of a fiery nature, someone who takes action, somebody who is a doer versus someone who likes to reflect or take pause to think about their strategy. This guy, she's going to take very quick action, and this guy is maybe going to be a little bit slower. When I think of the Knight of Pentacles, I think of the key phrase, slow and steady wins the day. And that's exactly the approach the Knight of Pentacles takes to life. Nothing needs to be rushed. Whereas the Queen of Wands might feel a bit different. She likes to get things done straight away. She's very impatient. So I hope that gives you some idea of how I use the Significator card to tell who is who in a tarot reading. And if you have any questions, you can go ahead and contact me at victoria@eternalathena.com, or you can visit me on the web at eternalathena.com. And that's it for today. I will see you guys later.